Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the briefing of international finance course. This is something which we are going to take up in the term 6 of your BM program. Uh, this is going to be a course which is going to expose you to the corporate finance in the international setup, right? So this is an interesting course, right? And this basically makes you aware of how things work in an international market, right? To make it look something relevant and interesting, let us understand the current Adani market scenario, right? So where you can see that like a lot of transactions happening between India, Mauritius, and then again with like certain other organizations across the globe over there, right? So how does it work, right? So that is something that we are going to explore in this particular course as well. And do remind me if we don't cover the Adani fiasco at that point of time, right? Because like things will change, right? I'll try to make it more relevant at that point of time. But if some of you are interested, we'll definitely cover up this Adani fiasco at that point of time as well. And it is an interesting case. Like we do not have a ready to use case study for Adani, but we do have a lot of materials which can be discussed during this course as well. So the current scenario definitely makes us like feel the importance of international finance that we have, right? And every organization or every modern day organization is dealing with like multinational corporations, right? So it is operating on global foot front, and that is where it becomes very important for all of us to be aware of how the international finance setup or how the international markets basically work. And this is what basically we are going to look at it. Now most of you are going to be placed in multinational corporations, so decision making pertaining to your firm or pertaining to your job profile in an international setting from a multinational perspective is going to be very important, and that is the perspective that we are going to bring in when we are discussing these things into the classroom as well. Okay, so we'll look at the international capital market. We'll look at like how the business environments are basically getting impacted, how the currency fluctuations impact your international transactions as well. So we will be looking at some of these aspects there. So course coverage, if you look at it, right, so it basically highlights some of the important aspects of like rising multinational corporations, right? How the international monetary system basically works, right? The foreign currencies and exchange rate fluctuations that we come across, how do we look at it, country and currency risk that we have, international financial markets that we are going to tap, right? Because if we are trying to focus on growing leaps and bounds, the domestic market may not be sufficient enough to fund our growth prospects or growth opportunity that we have. So we will have to tap on to the international financial markets as well. So we'll look at some of these aspects as well. Now when we are looking at growing, right, and when we are trying to look at the strategies which can help us in growing abroad, we will look at some of the strategies pertaining to foreign direct investments as well. We will look at the international trade management, right? So the concepts related to letter of credit, bank guarantee, right? So all these aspects will also come over there. We'll look into some of these aspects as well. Now we'll take few cases like where if someone is working in a global enterprise, right? So how do you manage the financials of a global enterprise? So that is also something that we are going to look at it. Now the textbook that we are going to use is going to be primarily like International Financial Management by Shapiro, Moles and Seal. Like this is a very well renowned book. A lot of things will cover up from economics perspective, from finance perspective, right? And again the international economics perspective as well. So that is going to be a fairly good way of looking at the course as well. Now why do people want to go global, right? Or why do businesses want to go global? So definitely they want to exploit the certain advantages of operating globally, right? So there are going to be certain advantages pertaining to currency rate, right? There are going to be advantages pertaining to the financial decision making that you have in that international context, and all these things are basically going to be core at this particular course that we have. If you are already aware of this particular course outline, you would know that like what we are going to cover, and it's going to be more of a practice oriented course that we have, right? There are going to be a lot of theories, a lot of economic theories which are going to go into the background, but we will be analyzing it more from a practice perspective, that okay, like let that theory be into the background, but how does it impact the trade and transactions that are happening in the modern day. And every session deals with some relevant, some pertinent questions that our country or some international organizations are facing on a regular basis as well. The way this course deals is that like we often divide the class into different regions of the world, like APAC, EMEA, right? Uh, like USA, and then like the North America, and then the Latin America division as well, right? So we divide the classroom into certain groups, and these essential groups or these essential geographical regions will basically bring in insights from their specific regions, right? So that basically makes the learning of this particular course more international and also more internationally relevant as well. And you will be responsible for tracking information or any major happenings into your geographic region as well, and we'll be discussing a lot of those things into the class as well, so it becomes like fairly interesting discussion into the class as well. And this is a fairly great way to go on to the job, because after this term you are basically going on to the job, and that is where you will be able to showcase that like this is how internationally ready you are for any kind of job or assignment that you are therefore, right? So this is an interesting course, easy, lightweight, at the same time like a lot of like uh, relevance and pertinence to what anyone is going to work on, and especially when you are working in a multinational firm, right? So we will look at like this particular course from like why firms want to pursue international business, right? So what are the factors which are affecting, right? How the international capital flows happen, right? What are the balance of payment situation that we have, which are the countries which are having like a highly imbalanced or like a high amount of like country risk that they have, right? uh, Many of us feel that like we are pretty safe on our economy, and then we basically look at like okay, what is the debt to GDP ratio that we have, and then suddenly we say that okay, like this looks like pretty humongous number to us, right? So it's going to impact in a different way. Our thought process changes when we deal with some of more intricacies of like these details that we have, what kind of economic exposure that we have, and to which region or to which country do we have, right? What kind of translation and transaction exposure that a particular company can have, right? And also like a country can have, right? So we all look at some of these aspects there. Slowly and steadily, we basically look at the most important aspect of international finance, and that is basically the currency market, right? So, how that currency market works, right? What kind of like transactions happen over there? What are the ways of like quoting those transactions, right? What are indirect quotes? What are direct quotes, right? How do we forecast currency movements? What kind of like decisions that people take in order to hedge against the currency movements as well, right? So all these things we are going to look at in detail when we are looking at the international finance course as well. uh, how do we take advantage of certain like information asymmetries? If there are arbitrage opportunities, can we basically deal with them? And again, many of us know that currencies market is a huge market, and it is one of the largest market that we have. And a lot of people trade actively in currencies, and they're making kind of a risk-free return just from the arbitrage opportunities which are appearing on a very regular basis. So this is an interesting avenue to look at, and again, you can expose yourself to the currency trading aspect as well. uh, we have heard about like purchasing power parity or interest rate parity, right? So we will look at the application of these and how that basically helps us in determining like what kind of effect will it have on our business operations as well, right? What kind of strategy should we take up if the purchasing power parity or if the interest rate parity holds, right? So what does it happen? Big Mac, a lot of us like who are fan of McDonald's, right? So we will look at the Big Mac index, right? And it is definitely as tasty as the Big Mac as well, right? So this is something, a very interesting way of looking at how the exchange rate may be determined, how they can be compared, and how the trade balances can be considered, keeping the Big Mac index into consideration over there. Overall, we are looking at the international aspect of like any business over there. So we will look at how international and domestic capital markets are different, right? How can we tap like the international money market, international credit market, debt market, right? Or the stock market as well, right? So the concepts of ADR, GDR, right? Or the concept of Yankee bond or samurai bond, right? So we will be looking at some of these details as well. uh, Derivatives, again, like by default forms an important aspect of any business, because like we are always trying to mitigate the risk. So we will be looking at some of the derivatives uh, in the context of like foreign exchange as well, and these are basically the currency derivatives that we are looking at. So we'll look at certain options, right? We'll look at certain forwards, futures, we'll look at certain trading strategies or hedging strategies that is available in the forex derivatives market as well. uh, Capital budgeting, we remember that it is international financial management, right? So it is an extension of the financial management. So if you are looking at an international project, right, probably some of that you will cover in the project appraisal and working capital management as well. So it will be an extension to that, and you will be able to see that, okay, if I'm basically looking at international uh, uh, project up over there, so how do I look at the aspects of capital budgeting over there, right? So what are the things that I need to consider? What are the things that we basically change in the case of like international capital budgeting exercise over there, right? So we will look at the international cost of capital budgeting, working capital management, and if we have to create a portfolio of international assets, so how do we basically deal with that? And towards the end, we will be looking at it from a holistic perspective, that let's say if we are a part of a multinational organization, right? So how do we manage the global enterprise, right? So we will look at certain like swap formations over there. We will look at certain like trade management exercises that are going to happen. If I have to operate, like how do I decide if I have to create a subsidiary over there, or if I it should be a separate entity, if it should be a joint venture, right? So how do I decide on the mode of like connecting in an international market over there? So we will look up at that as well. And towards the end of the session, right, so we will look at one practitioner from the field. We will see how he deals in the real life market or in the international market arena. He will bring up the things that we have covered and what we should know when we are going on to the job, and how we can tap the potential of an international financial market in any such job, right? So be it you are an analyst, be it you are like someone who's a credit rating analyst, be it you are a financial analyst, be it you are investment banker, right? So how do you basically take the most out of like an international financial market over there, right? So that is something that we'll try to learn from there. The course will have certain assignments, right? So we will have a couple of like project presentations over there, and we'll try to wrap up the session with like overall what was the story during these like 20 sessions that we had, right? So how did we start and where did we end? What did we learn? What is the way forward when you're moving on to the job, right? So we will be looking at all these aspects over there. Okay. Now, the assessment scheme, we are going to have two quizzes, again on UMS, like 15 marks each. This is a fairly like the moment the quizzes are on UMS, like you do understand that it is a time quiz of about 10 to 15 minutes, right? So these are basically easy quizzes that you have, right? Class participation 10% that you have, right? And then there will be a project over there, and it will be a group project, so 20% weightage to the same, where as mentioned earlier, you will be representing one of the geographic regions, like be it APAC, EMEA, right, Latin America division, and so on. The last like course that we have, or the last uh, 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 term of your seniors that we had over here, right? So we had like interesting discussions, and we had interesting learnings from the various geographic regions. Who would have thought that Thailand could be a very good place to basically start a business as well, right? So who could have thought that there is a small country like Uruguay, and that basically presents a very like interesting place to basically start a business over there, right? So these are certain insights that basically come up from these kind of project assignments that we are going to come up with. We can work on certain assignments which are much more in depth, which can be converted into a research paper as well. So the choice is going to be completely on your side, right? So whether you want to make it more like a research, like a secondary research work, or whether you want to make it more like a research project or research paper work over there. So that choice will be given to you. We don't have a midterm in this particular course, so you can like be a bit chill out, right? But at the same time, you will have an end term which will be more of an application oriented there, right? So you will have certain ways of assessing the like the markets, right? Assessing certain a small caselet, right? So what basically happens in that kind of scenario, so that can be basically done over there. uh, I primarily believe in like making the course more practice oriented, and my quizzes or my end term uh, papers are going to be more of like numericals over there. But there are definitely like some element of like theory which can be used, and again these are going to be more of like application oriented theories which are going to be there. Like, so for example, a case analysis where you do some part of analysis, or maybe some data is already presented to you, and then you basically infer based on the data that is being presented, and how do you decide based on the given set of information. So that is how it's going to be over there. uh, any project report, right? So we don't like allow plagiarism beyond 15%, right? So again, you will have access to Turnitin to evaluate your projects and then make your final submissions over there. So make sure that you're honest on that part. So that is all that we have in this particular course. It is a good course. It is a lightweight course. It's a fun course to basically go with, and this is something which is going to expose you to a lot of intricacies of a multinational corporation over there. This will also make you much more aware of like the things which are happening into the global market, right? So that is something that is a very interesting part of this particular course. So that's all we have for this particular elective over there. So I hope to see you a lot more in number in this particular course, and let's have fun together during the course. Like, we'll learn, and we'll make the most of this particular course over there. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Take care. See you guys in the class.